자, 시간이 돼서 이제 시작을 하겠어요. 우리 오늘 또 귀한 두 분을 모셨는데 오늘이 좀 특별한 것은 원래 저희가 한 분을 어렵게 컨택을 해서 계속 요청을 드리는 와중에 그러면 나는 한 분을 더 모시고 오겠다. 그래서 우리 아주 두 분을 모셨습니다. 첫 번째 연사분은 크리스티앙 바르드, 예, 프랑스에서 원래 오셨고, 우리 두 번째도 이게 프레데릭 루카스 선생님, 이 두 분이 오늘 두 가지 원래는 이제 하나로 통합되는 이 주제겠지만 주로 건축과 디자인의 측면에서 첫 번째 여러분 보시겠지만 휴먼스케이프라는 제목이에요. 그 다음에 이제 두 번째는 그 지속 가능한 도시들, Sustainable Cities라는 주제를 가지고 우리 두 분께서 30분씩 말씀을 해주실 거예요. 사실 이 두 분 굉장히 섭외하기 어렵거든요. 제 개인적으로. 왜냐하면 워낙 바쁘시고 또 뭐 학생들을 만나는 거 좋아하시지만 워낙 지금 바쁘시고 뭐 부르시는 데도 많고 그러셔서 근데 어렵게 오늘 여기까지 와주셨으니까 우리가 뭐 약속한 준비한 질문들이 있지만 끝나고 나서 여러분들 활발한 질문 영어로 부탁드릴게요. 참, 네. Do you speak Korean?
조금해요.
우리 바드 선생님의 아드님이 여기 전기공학과에 저희 손 좀 한번 들어보세요. 예. 벌써 셔츠가 프렌치 하잖아요, 지금. 우리 아무나 소화할 수 없는 옷을 입고 나타나줘서 고맙습니다. Please welcome Mr. Bard.
예, 감사합니다. Do you hear me? It's okay? Okay. I'm not a professional speaker, so I hope you will forgive me, especially my English with my strong French accent. I hope you will be able to understand me. I will speak today about HUMANSCAPE, which is the way we are implementing the project in our company. So what is the meaning of HUMANSCAPE? HUMANSCAPE is a term that has been coined by two scholars. One is a couple, in fact. They are Rachel and Stefan Kaplan. They are working in the environmental psychology, and especially they were working on the positive effect that nature have on people. But the question is, if nature has positive effect on people, what's happened when we are now in a world where soon we will have 75% of the population in city, when we have already 90% of people in Korea living in an urban environment. So I will try to answer to these questions, sharing with you my experience from object up to the urban environment, and also see the complexity of nowadays, what I think is our responsibilities, and the sustainability will be then developed by Frederic. So it's a story. So once upon a time, people were working with their hand, their head, and their heart, and they were using some tools. Sometimes for centuries, similar tools for years and years. And what they were doing was reflecting their talent. In fact, what their production was kind of a mirror image of their personality. The traditional object is limited to the capacity of the human body, his motion and his muscle power. So the result is that from the object up to the city, everything was at the human scale because it was the limit. I start very simply in ECOLE BOULLE, which is the art and craft school in Paris. And we were designing our own design, but also we were doing also reproducing the old pieces. This is one metal cup I've done in the mid-80s, starting from a flat sheet of brass, and using a forge, using an anvil, a mortar, the armor, and create the shape like it is. And it was a meeting with the material. In fact, the experience of their color, their texture, their malleability, and to understand that there is, each of them have their own characters. And there is kind of need of empathy to understand the material. You cannot do what you want with them, you have to understand them. And what was interesting is that sometimes when you have some project, then sometimes you have to change the design because you cannot make it. Sometimes you have to change the material. Sometimes you can modify the material. For example, if you have some metal, you can change the metal alloy, and you can maybe have the right balance of metal that's able to make your design. The other possibility is also that you can design the tool to create the object you want to do. So this is not only designing the object, but this is designing the tool to realize the object you want to make. In 2001, it was a display we have designed for a company of L'Oréal, a brand of L'Oréal, it's Kerastase, and the display was done with a curve and contour curve. And it was quite difficult to make it so, but I still met my subcontractors working metal and working with wood, and their answer was very simple. They said that we cannot make it. So I have the question, what I can do? Do I have to change the design, or do I have to find another solution? And one of my friends is still a car designer, and I met him, and he said, okay, but with your drawings, there is no problem. So he just used his software, what he's using to design car, and we send the data to Ulsan. We create the molds, we create, we use some stamping press, and we use all the make different species that we can assemble after to realize the display. So we use the technology for cars to realize this display. So when we have difficulties, often we can find the opportunities and solutions. It's a totally different project. This is for the Embassy of Spain. We won the competition in '98, and for all the furnitures. But for the ambassador, I wanted to design something a bit special, something that could link everyday's activities of the ambassador with the Korean culture. And I really like this pavilion that you can see in the background, which is in Gyeongbokgung. And I used to try to find the proportion and the composition of the building. And from this, at another scale, I've created the desk. So you have here the plan, and you have here the elevation of the desk. So the purpose of design is to give meaning, and the meaning is embedding in the context. It means in the country, in the site, in the history, in the culture. Is embedded in people, in fact. Now we move to the interior, and you see here Hanok is a very traditional interior. You can see that this is extremely plain and simple, and also warm. What is interesting to see is that there is the goods were at the time were distributed and used within the locality where they were produced. So you have a strong homogeneity in terms of style and in terms of material, which is, and this evokes usually moral values and austere condition of living, and you have this feeling almost every place in the world when you see the traditional environment. Here it's a apartment we have done with my wife in 2005. And you can see that you have a Korean element, like this traditional furniture. You have a maru, but which is inside the apartment. You have a kemine of hammock, but which is inside, is used as a sculpture, in fact, inside the interior. But you have also some Italian sofa, you have a B&O sound system, there is a CD rack that I've designed, there is some furniture coming from France and coming from Myanmar, and you can see that the homogeneity is not based on a similar style, but is based on the system of coherent cultural elements. So the modern environment is a system of ambience composed of elements that you can use like an alphabet. So in other words, it's a language, and you can use it to make to use the element like to create words, and with these words you can create a drama, you can create a comedy, you can create a poetry. It really depends on you. And you have infinity possibility. Here it's the interior of the Institut Pasteur in Pyeongchang, and the coherence from abstract concepts you can see allow unlimited possibilities. Space, in fact, is a type of medium where you have some sensorial experience created with volume, with light, with shadow, the colors, the smell, the sound, the pattern, and also the sequence. Because we cannot see the room all the face at the time. We have to move our heads, and we have the time which is embedded in the space. Here it's another project we have done last year. It's located in Doksungu-Kil, nearby the Seoul City Hall. It's a very old building, 1930, and the company is Asians, is a digital online marketing company. And we were very interested to merge, in fact, the identity of the company with the identity of the building and also the identity of the district. You can see the greenery that you have in this district. So we wanted to create continuity between outside and inside. Also, we wanted that the people who worked feel empowered and participate to the design process. So all of them has been requested to express for them what was their working place, the dreaming working place. So we get all this information, and we combine all this, and we create the site. One thing is that when we removed the ceiling, we saw this existing wood structure, which was part of the building, original building, and we kept it in all the different space as a unifier. It looked like a pattern of traditional windows of Korean anok. So the ambience is a kind of assemblage. You put different things together. But this is not inconsistent multiple. In fact, it becomes consistent because it's the result of a concept clearly defined that enables the creation of a consistent identity from hybrid cultural elements. Now we move to architectures, and the architecture is not only the link between the concept to the form. It's also the link between the interface between the human and of the people and the environment, the natural environment. And what is very nice in the Korean traditional architecture is that this seamless interaction that there is between the built environment and the natural environment. And sometimes it's very difficult to express it because it's like to express something that which is intangible. So how to make intangible to be tangible? And I really like this sentence of Yannick Soetsu, who I think really capped the essence of the Korean architecture, which is nature protects architectures and architecture ornament nature. You have this beautiful interaction between both of them. Maybe you know this building. It's in Yusong. Now it's on Plus. You know it. It was at the time the building of Carrefour, and it was the biggest store of Carrefour in Korea. And for the president, it was for him the occasion, the opportunity to rethink the corporate identity, especially the store facade identity. So as it's a hypermarket, still a market, and I tried to find some relationship with the Korean village. In fact, we didn't done the design, but we prepared the brief for the design. And in the brief, we were thinking that we have to add several elements that had been adapted by the different companies, and the winner was IRIM at the time. And what you can see is that there is the madang, the space between the street and the store. There is the maru, which is kind of a transitory space between outside and inside. There is the tree, which is where people were gathering around before together. There is the daemun, the main gate that was a part of the village, the entrance, and the junction, the totem. Also, this element was integrated. So we saw at the scale of the object, but also at the scale of the architecture, we can create an identity linking the project with its local cultural roots. And this is a contextuality without pastiche. We don't recreate a copy of an old house, but we try to find the essence and to reinterpret it. Here it was a building renovation project for Dongbu Insurance. You can see on the left, it was the building built in 1955, and this is a precast concrete building, and it was, I think, for the time quite advanced. And I wanted to keep this pioneer approach and to make, in 2006, a green building in Korea. And I wanted to make it green, but also I wanted that people feel it's green. And also I wanted that this building could be a kind of interface between the company and people in the surrounding, working in the surrounding of this building. So we create, for example, this greenhouse that can be where you can really feel the greenery of the building that you can see from outside, from inside. And on the west facade that you cannot see here, there was a media facade that was interacting with the pedestrian on the main street. So in fact, we see that the building is not only envelope, is not only a construction, but is kind of an interface. This is interface between nature and people, between space and time, and between material and spiritual. Here it was the building, and it was more kind of a prospective approach for education institution to integrate different mixed use, different function on one place in order to have a different revenue stream. So maybe at the beginning the cost of the construction is more expensive, but it allows to have more revenue stream, so they can lower the cost of the tuition fee and the cost of the maintenance of the building. So what we try to do, in fact, when we have some architecture project, we try to combine two strategies. One we call design thinking, and the other one the sustainable thinking. With this combination, we can think and try to assess what are the people aspirations. We can review what is the business objective for the companies or for the cities. We can see what are the technological issues and solutions we have. What is the current market? What is the economic situation and environment, locally, maybe internationally? Sometimes there is interaction. We have to see also the existing and needed public policy. Sometimes in some countries it's possible to try to have some change or amendment on the public policy. Sometimes it's not possible. It depends, but we can try. And also, of course, we have the social, cultural environment and vision that we integrate in the project. So now we move to the urban scale, and I really like this sentence of Rem Koolhaas in his book Delirious New York, where he really capped that the beginning of the 20th century was the machine age. And I really like the end of this sentence, which is, he described Manhattan. The entire city became factory of man-made experience, where the real and the natural cease to exist. I think this is very important because sometimes we speak about the virtual world. We are speaking about augmented reality. But sometimes we tend to forget that we are living already in an artificial world. And sometimes we don't realize it. It's a project we have done with Christian Pozon Park in 2008 in Namyeonju on the east part of Seoul. We went up to the schematic design, and at the time it was in the green belt. And we could get the construction permit because we have some cultural building in the program of the construction. But the site was so beautiful, it was so green that we tried to really to minimize the impact of especially the footprint of buildings and infrastructure in the site. And we try also to keep as much as possible the relief, and we didn't damage the existing relief, but we try more to integrate the existing house in the relief. Also, we try to minimize the use of car with creating this core place where all the car is coming, and after distribution with different ways, but not with personal cars. So it was a created environment combining the permanence and aleatory element, solid and void, static elements, and dynamic flows. Here it's a project, and after Frederic will explain a bit more about the sustainability approach that we had on this project, but we start with the contents. And the content we had at the beginning was very exclusive, it was very for rich people. And the project was initiated by a company from UK, and they need some local partners. And for them it was very difficult to find some local partners because it was too exclusive. You know that chaebol in Korea are very stressed about their status and the image they have in Korea. And if they are assimilated to too much luxury image, they are very reluctant to be working on this project. But in the same times when we were working with the partners, we are really in the high tech. They expressed the interest to work with some university, to create some R&D center, to also maybe create some business incubator, kind of hub for innovation. So it was a possibility to create, in fact, another other contents, more oriented to innovators and entrepreneurs. But still, it was not enough. And somehow we have the chance. We have the chance that we have to move the site for several reasons. And the new site was more expensive than the first one. So it obliges us to think about another business model, to think other the element to integrate in the project. And we develop all a public area, which was, we can attract people because we have this exclusive area, which is kind of dream place. And we can create for them not only spectator, but we can create also some specific contents in order that they can see, but also they can enjoy the place. So in fact, is that the city planning is not only anymore the place where only experts are working together. It's more than this. We need to understand the people aspiration, and also we need to create contents that will make the city attractive, the city competitive. You know, between cities now there is not only a competition between different cities. Now the Seoul is in competition with New York, Seoul is in competition with Beijing, with Tokyo. This is like they were just neighboring. There is no time limit and no space limit. So they need to create some content, some attraction, and this will lead to the city planning. It's a project that we are now starting in Sri Lanka. I cannot give you image for the moment, but you can see that we have the both approach for the sustainability. Here you have the initial approach for the ecologic part with different transportation, water, site, the waste treatment, the energy, the interrelation between the different elements. And also what we want is this project is in the center of the city. So if it's in the center of the city, it should be intertwined with the other activities. And we cannot see only the project only as our own vision of developer, but we need to understand the project from different perspectives. From people who are living in this site, for people who are visiting, and we have different type of visitor. You have people who visit for business, for others for tourists, for others who meet families, working people, which are working for companies, sometimes working at the universities. Also, they can create companies, they can invest, it can be foreigners, they can be local people, and also people who are studying in the project. So we try to understand what their needs. And the idea is to, beyond the urban planning, the aim of this project is to design a viable ecosystem, culturally and socially, and in terms also of ecology and economy. So the complexity now is that from the initial human scale has totally exploded. We are not anymore in a human scale environment. We have transferred our physical effort to mechanical effort. We start with some abstractive energy. We are working with, start with the steam, and then the fossil fuel and electricity. And also this relationship with what we are producing is totally disconnected with our body. We just use our body for visual and hearing check. So all this, maybe this is the first conclusion, is that the practical conceptualization is based on the total abstraction. And as a consequence of this, we are not acting in a given world, but in a produced world, means an artificial world. So you know that this innovation changed the notion of time and geography, but not only this. Do you know what is this? How you call this? Smartphone. But why a smartphone? Why a smartphone? Is it a phone? I think it's a smart camera, no? Or maybe a smart calculator. I don't know. You know, this is I think that is one of the points of the innovation, is that this is not only one function, is that even the identity of the object has been changed. And also the space. Is it really a park? Is it really a cafe? Is it really a car? You know, we change also the notion of space and the nature of space, and especially there's a disconnection between space and function. So all this, we go back now to our responsibility, and starting from the 19th century, where we have created a world totally focusing on the production and distribution with all the networks, which was a radical change. We bring us to this machine of living, and after to this urban machine. In fact, we have created a total environment which is totally disconnected from the nature. And what's happened is that this environment has been done at the expense of nature. So maybe our approach and what we think that is our responsibility is to rethink of what was the organic relationship between the city, the people, and the environment. So this is basically the frame of the relationship between the village and the environment before the urban development, the industrial revolution. And after this industrial revolution, we get this environment which is totally overlap, forgetting totally about the organic relationship we had with nature, and just focusing on the distribution and production. And I think that's our goal, in fact, is to rethink what was this organic relationship we had with nature and the city and people. We still have some activity that will harm the nature, but we can mitigate some other, and we can create also some positive. We can also bring positive things to the nature, to work with nature. And for example, we can create energies, and we can have cities that are making their own energy. We could have cities that they can make their own food. You know, for example, Korea, 75% of the food is imported. And most of the construction, in fact, is built on the agricultural area. So, as a conclusion, the cityscape should be the mirror image of the humanscape. It means that, as you saw, donc, this at the beginning there was donc, the people. What they were producing was the mirror image of themselves. I think that the city is also our mirror, but we need to be not as a machinescape, but should be a humanscape. Conceived as a holistic interface, as a mutualistic relationship between people and nature, to produce a sustainable ecosystem. Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. So I am Frederic Lucas. I'm French, as it sounds, and I'm living in Korea for 6 years and a half now. But my first contact with Korea was about 20 years ago. I'm working for Veolia. Veolia is a French company dealing with environment. Not dealing with environment because it is trendy or fashionable. This is a company which is 100 on. This was for Christian. You were earlier. Veolia is 160 years old, dealing with environment from that time. So my presentation will be about sustainable cities, and especially the solutions in order to achieve the sustainability objectives. I will start by introducing a company briefly for you to understand the context. I will go through a kind of definition. What do we mean by sustainability? What do we mean by sustainable cities? And then I will go through some solutions, and not theoretical solutions, real solutions which have been implemented in some places all over the world. Let's start with Veolia. As I said, Veolia is a French company dealing with environment. We have three activities. The first one, and the original one, is water management. And we started by managing the water of Lyon. Lyon is the second largest city of France. And then we manage the water of Venice in Italy. And this is where we started in 1850, about. Then we manage energy. And when we say energy here, it's not to produce energy. It's to distribute energy and to make it in an efficient way, from the production to the end user. So, for instance, it's steam network in cities or district heating in your apartment complex, this type of thing. And then waste management and recovery. It's not also here the collection of waste. It's the conversion of waste into valuable product. Whether energy, for instance, biogas, your food waste converted into biogas, or plastic converted into fuel, for instance. About 30 billion euro, and the size in terms of staff, the size of Samsung, if you want to compare, 200,000 people. So I said it's very old, but what makes us a little bit different from others is research. All the solutions we implement are ours. Technologies we developed, systems we invented and patented. We have a huge network of research centers and researchers. We have also training, because in fact we work for cities, we work for companies that are the end users of our solution, and we train them. And for industry in Asia, the training center is in Songdo, which is also one of our research centers. And everything we say to our customer about environment, we apply to ourselves. Like the greenhouse gas emission management, avoidance, and all the renewable solutions I will introduce to you. This is an example of our activities in Korea, about 450, now 500 employees, and we work mostly for industries. You see names that may be familiar to you, Samsung, Kumho, SK Hynix, Lotte Chemical, and more recently KHMP. We will operate some large nuclear power plant to deal with the problems which Korea faced last year. Let's go to the core of the subject, which is sustainable cities. And let's start by defining what is a city, what is the urban environment. The urban environment is basically the conversions of three aspects. First, this is the area where people are living. The urban district. And these days, because of the growth of population, this urban area is growing. As Christian mentioned, 50% of the population worldwide is living in a city. In Korea, it's 90%. And we expect that worldwide, by 2030, it will be 3/4, basically, of all worldwide population living in a city. The impact is new constructions continuously, and also the surface of those cities is expanded, gaining over the natural and the countryside and the mountains and so on. In relation to this, as people are living in cities, there's a need for more energy. The problem is that most of the time the energy is not produced at the scale of a city. It's coming from elsewhere. And until now, the energy is coming from, let's say, fossil fuel and from scarce resources, which are not renewable, which make them very volatile and very expensive. This vicious circle has an impact on the environment. Everybody is talking about CO2 emission, air pollution, and ultimately climate change. That make the urban environment or the urban territory most of us now are living to. And I put here two other numbers. Even so, half of the population is living in cities. They consume 3/4 of all the energy. We are not talking about industry. We are not talking about cars here. We are talking about urban environment, which consumes 3/4 of all energy produced. Same for the pollution. 70% of the greenhouse gases are coming from cities. So, what do we do? That is the status. And what would be the vision? What could be what we say as sustainable? On this chart, you have at the middle the city. The city is like a living species. It's consuming goods and as a result producing waste, chemicals, whatever waste it is, as a living species. But contrary to the nature, which recycle everything, a city is throwing away everything. There's very little recycling. We say that cities are greedy because they consume scarce resources. They don't care most of the time about recovery. And in addition to this, most of the cities are not paying attention to the environment. The approach of sustainability would be, or circular economy, which is more or less similar, is to create loops. For instance, if you consume drinking water, which becomes wastewater, you can treat water so that it becomes again drinkable. This is what is done in Singapore. There's only 2 countries in the world doing this. It's Israel and Singapore. Singapore is importing wastewater from Malaysia, producing pure water. Of course, after you have to deal with people's mindset. In Korea, I'm not sure that if you say to people they drink wastewater, they will be very happy. But it is possible. Same for the waste or for the heat. You have Hondol in your home, and you notice that sometimes, even so you don't heat your floor between the bathroom and the boiler, it's warm. But this heat is lost. In a city, same. Between the central boiler and the apartment complex, there's pipes. And pipes are dissipating heat, which is lost today. So this is all this new way of thinking, sorry, it's me, the new way of approaching the way cities are consuming that we should change. And this is the meaning of circular economy or sustainable development. We should not see this only as a matter of consumption, a matter of energy, or a matter of cost. We should see it as a global picture. We talked about the environment, we talked about cost. Of course, if we save resources, we will save the budget for the city, but not only. We should think about citizen, the quality of life. People expect to live in a peaceful environment, expect to live in an enjoyable environment. That, for the moment, it's most of the time not a priority in cities. It should be appealing. As Christian mentioned just before, now cities are competing at the scale of a country, Daejeon against Daegu, against Seoul, at the scale of the world. Cities are competing to attract a lot of people, to attract citizens. So appeal is important, and resilience. It should not be a one-stop exercise. It should not be a short-term vision. It's going over generations. We should step back a little bit and foresee what could be the future. It's a long-term approach. This started basically in the 90s. In 92 by Rio de Janeiro UN, I would say, Congress. At that time, some cities and some mayors founded Agenda 21, 21 standing as 21st century. And that was the first time that this approach went from the cities to a global, let's say, idea, a global concept. Since then, the United Nations supported this idea by foundings, and some networks of mayors and cities have been created, like the C40 cities. Seoul is part of those networks, but if, for instance, the objective of Seoul is to reduce the greenhouse gas by 30% in 2030, business as usual. If you compare the objectives of London, is minus 60% by 2020. And not business as usual, starting from 90s, where the economy in 90s was not what it is now. Sao Paulo, it's minus 35% 2 years ago. So you see, each cities are different, and it's not a matter of implementing technologies. It's a matter of foreseeing the future and thinking sustainability. What are the priorities for the cities? I will go a little bit fast on this slide. As I mentioned, the cities has mainly 3 objectives. Environment, economy, and social and community. The environment, it's easy, it's to reduce the pollution, basically. But also to try to produce the energy where the need is. It makes no sense, perhaps, to have a power plant located 300 kilometers away and plenty of transmission lines, instead of having small generators located where the needs are. Sustainable development. For the economic development, the goal also is to think local. Most of the cities having this sustainability plan, the goal is not to import. The goal is to consume agricultural products from the place. It's to use wood from the area. In Korea, for instance, we say, let's produce energy with biomass. It means using wood. The problem is that the wood is imported from Malaysia or Indonesia. Is it sustainable? I don't know. So this is an example. And the pleasant living, it's a place where people will enjoy, where people will foresee the future in. As I repeated several times, and also Christian mentioned, sustainability is around people. Sustainability is for citizens. People are living in cities. Cities is for people. So the most important is the involvement of people. It's not the idea of companies or the idea of a mayor. Everybody should participate in the definition of sustainable environment. And this is where this is approached in Europe, for instance, or in US. In a summary, before we go to the solutions to reach those ideal, let's say, concepts, in a summary, sustainable cities will provide resource conservation. You remember the loops I mentioned, the circular economy. This is one of the concepts of sustainable cities. The second concept of sustainable city is local economic development. It's to use local companies, to use local people, to use local agriculture, and not necessarily importing from elsewhere. Then that may make conflicts with countries or cities willing to export. If you think that Korea economy is relying on 70% on economy, if the other countries have this approach, what will happen? Quality of life on environmental levels, I think it's obvious. If you have less pollution, less gas, it's reached. Social equity. It shall not benefit only to some. It shall benefit to the community. Empowerment and involvement of citizens. This is what I explained just before. And sustainable urban planning. Instead of erecting one building here and one building there, it should be a vision. There should be plan. There should be a forecast about the urban development, as Christian explained just before. Let's go now through solutions, and solutions which have been implemented. Solutions first are specific to each city. Cities are specific by their culture, by the environment, by their economical status. So the solutions to reach those sustainability levels are specific. It's difficult to replicate exactly a solution from a city to another. The flows. Flows means flow of energy, flows of utilities, but flow also of people, transport. Transport is a key aspect of sustainability. The technology should be a way to reach. It should be a mean to reach the objectives of sustainability. It should not be the objective by itself. Adding LED should not be the goal. Adding computers everywhere should not be the objectives. There should be a way to reach the objectives. Adapted governance, people should participate to the decisions. More collaborative discussions. Synergy, water and energy, waste and energy, as I explained, for instance, you can recover the waste to produce energy and to close the loop. This is a concept of the circular economy. End users oriented, not business oriented, oriented to people and to citizens. And at the end, long term, as I already mentioned. So let's go through those ideas. Example, resource conservation and water recycling. I explained the example of Singapore and the example of Israel, but it could be, for instance, simpler in your toilets. When you flush the toilet, the water is lost. Or if you take the shower, the water is lost. But you could wash your car with. Or you could have certain other usage. So the regulation in Korea for large buildings in Seoul is only 10%. In some other countries, it's compulsory. All showers and Seoul and toilets should use what we call gray water. If you take your shower, the water is filtered and sent back to the toilet. This is a way, for instance, to do it simply. It can be done, of course, at the scale of the industry or the scale of a city. It can be done. Another example of both reusing the resource and keeping or developing the ecosystem. This looks like a greenhouse. This is. But this is also a wastewater treatment plant. And the plants actually are treating the wastewater coming from a city, a small village, and so on. So at the same time, you develop the ecosystem, you use the local species, and the other time, you treat the wastewater. You reduce the impact on the ecosystem because the plants are consuming the organic matters which are in the wastewater. And it could be also educational for the kids, for the schools, to learn about the environment. Alternative energy. A source of energy could be wastewater. Maybe strange, but wastewater, the temperature of wastewater very often is higher than the temperature of the water you take from the tap. And if you treat it, you send back to the tap, then there's a temperature gap. So the idea here is to produce heat with the wastewater. If you have an heat exchanger, basically, and this type of things, heat pump, you can extract the little energy which is in the wastewater to produce sufficient heat to warm your house or to warm an apartment. This is not a dream. It is done in Berlin. Part of Berlin is warmed up like this. And some IKEA shop, IKEA is a Swedish furniture shop, which is coming to Korea next month. Some of the shops are heated this way. Another disruptive idea, in Korea you have plenty of computers, like in many other countries. And especially you have plenty of data centers. Data centers are clusters of computers located at the same place for intensive computing. Those data centers are consuming a lot of energy, and most of this energy is converted into heat. Today, the energy is used to cool down those computers. The other way, like in Europe, is to recover this heat, again, to produce steam or to produce heat to warm up cities. This is done in Europe. Environment and quality environments. That is applied in Korea, like in Pyeongchang or several apartment complexes in Seoul, or even in Daejeon. In Yusong, I saw some of them. This is the vacuum waste collection systems. So you don't have to dispose the bags down the street or to have trucks down the road picking the bags. You just have a collector or collectors scattered in the apartment complex, And underground, you have vacuum pipes which will dispatch the waste to recycling centers or to treatments, sorting facilities. So you see the benefit. You don't have nuisance because there's no waste around, no odors, nothing. You don't have the need for trucks. And automatically, there's a sorting to ease the recycling. So this is a type of solutions which are easy, simple, and will benefit to the community. Another way to impact the life and environment is to cool down the city. Maybe strange to you, but because of the density of construction, the temperature of cities these days is much higher than the neighboring countryside. Because concrete, because of pavement, is absorbing energy from the sunlight. And here you have some data. This is in Paris. You have Paris downtown, and you have the surrounding area. There's 10 degrees difference, 8 to 10 degrees difference. So the idea is to monitor, and in Japan, for instance, in certain cities, they cool down the pavement by having some water circulating in the stone in the pavement. And this water, after, is a wastewater, is a drinking water, whatever. But the benefit is that the pavement is cooling down naturally, and the overall temperature, and so is going down, and then it's making a more comfortable environment for people. And it's not spraying water around, which is evaporated. It's a different approach. Social equity. As I said just before, it should benefit to all. Even so, our companies, for instance, the goal is to sell systems, is to do business. We are also helping people in Middle East or in Afghanistan or elsewhere to access water. And I will give an example later on. Here, very often we are talking about smart system, smart cities, smart networks, smart everything. As I said, the technology shall not be the goal in itself. And here in our company, we implement, of course, sensors, technologies, computers, but more on the qualitative aspect. We collect data, and the goal is not only to have big data or to have plenty of data. The goal is to better evaluate the performance in terms of sustainability. It's better to understand the needs. Example, the monitoring of the quality of the tap water. In your house, you have a meter to measure the flow, the quantity of water you consume. But I assume you don't have anything to tell you what is the quality of your water. It happens in certain countries. And people are asking for it. And people will accept to pay more if the quality is there. And that is a way. Or for in China, in Pudong, our company is monitoring all the water of Shanghai, not only in quality, but in quantity, but also in quality. For the Olympic Games in London, for instance, we have been asked to monitor the quality, not for the taste, because of security, because of a terrorist attack. And in many countries, it's very important for people, for the authorities, to monitor in real time the quality to avoid any troubles or accident. It's important also for sustainability and for traceability. If, for instance, if you have a heavy rain, like in the monsoon here, there's local pollution. You have to anticipate. You saw this year, again in summer, some citizens of Seoul complained because the tap water was brown. It's too late. The pollution reached people. But if you monitor the quality, you can avoid this disturbance and you can basically reach a better environment. Then, the point here is that everybody should be part of this sustainability policy. The decisions for urban landscaping, the decision for building should involve citizens. And not only for the utility bills. The point is not to discuss how much we will pay. It's what should be the landscape, what should be the urban development, what are the expectations. You may think that all of this is nice, but might not exist. And I will give you here an example of cities where this have been implemented by a company, but other companies also are doing it. 2EI is the name of our division of our internal engineering company related to urban development. Christian mentioned a project just before in Korea. And we worked also on this project with respect to sustainability. We did not influence at all the content of the project, the purpose of the project. The project is what it is. But we helped the project to reach a certain level of sustainability by thinking about the way people will access to the site, the way people reuse water, energy, waste, and to try to create the loops I mentioned on the site. So this site would be in Incheon. And here, for instance, would be to use the food waste to produce biogas, which would be used in return to heat buildings. So to minimize the flows of trucks and so on. That would be an example. Reuse of water. There's a lake. The water of the lake is coming from the wastewater, for instance. So this type of concept. And at the end, that would not make the project more expensive. This would be the opposite. At first, perhaps the investment would be higher, but over the time, the place would be sustainable and in addition would be much cheaper to operate. Another example, it's to monitor the quality. Not to monitor the quantity, but to monitor the feeling of the citizens. How satisfied are the citizens about the environment? And this is south of France, Nice. Nice is a large city along the Mediterranean coast. And here, together with IBM, this famous American computer company, we put in place a network of sensors, but to collect and to analyze data. To analyze data about the energy consumption, to analyze data about the way they were living, how many times they were going out, where they were going, what type of transport they were using, what do they do with the waste. Everything was measured, understood, to create usage profile, to create behavior profile, and then to adapt the environment, the urban environment, to the way people are living. And not the opposite. A more recent example, 2 months ago, Sao Paulo, so Santiago de Chile, decided to think about the global city in terms of sustainability. Not only an area, but the full city. And they asked our company and some other French company to help them modelizing the way people are living, they need, and what should be the environment in order to reach this sustainability approach. So of course it's using tools, simulation, computers and technology, but the ultimate goal is to reach sustainability. As I said, it should benefit to all. And even so, Veolia, like many other companies, is there to do business. We have shareholders, of course. But here, for instance, we are working to help poor people not to drink unsafe water. And one of the issues here is arsenic. Arsenic in the ppb scale, part per billion, few parts per billion, it's death. Death or neural troubles. And it's very acute in developing countries. And we are working, and you see here, you may have heard the microcredit from India, and this person, Mohamed Yunus, has invented the concept, and we are working together with them to create microbank without, without interest, without any financial benefit on this, to help those people to access to a sustainable environment. And it's not only in developing countries, even in France or in UK or in developed country, we have also an initiative to promote entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship so that people locally will create the business and will participate to the development of these sustainable cities. That's all on my side. Thank you.
So I have a very big question about apartment in Korea. So there was a French anthrogeographer. Her name is Frederic. Do you know her? Yeah, she wrote a book, very influential book about Korean apartments. So why do you think Korean people are obsessed with apartments? And so our apartment is sustainable form of landscaping or urban construction. What do you think? So you're living in apartment in Britain? No.
I mean villa, small buildings.
Yeah, small buildings, smaller buildings, or larger space. Techno or
whatever.
Okay.
Several aspects. If you consider the design itself, the architecture, the energy efficiency is not efficient.
It's not
efficient.
Okay.
Because by the way it is designed, by the materials they use, the characteristics of the building, consideration the exposure to the sunlight, heating and cooling patterns, this type of construction is not optimal. The way it is done, because actually they are all the same. Whatever the construction company, whatever the place on the coast, whether you are in Gyeongnam or whether you are in Daejeon or in Pudong, whatever the rent, whatever the price, the same, everything. So the construction is not as efficient. That's why if you look at the management of the flow, people access to the place and so on, there's a kind of efficiency. But yes, I will go there. Yeah, no problem. But what? Yes. So. Yes. Thank you very much. Now it's public. So what I was saying. So in terms of construction itself, if you look, this is basically concrete blocks piled up. 4 years the same. There's no thinking about the energy. Using, for instance, the sunlight as a way to warm naturally the places. Most of the time, the buildings are close to one another, and you can see from far away the shadow they project to the other buildings, as an example. The integration in the environment, most of the time, they scrap mountains. I will stop touching this. They scrap mountains to implement the buildings in the place. So for those aspects, it's difficult to see sustainability. Sometimes they put solar panels on the facade to give a little green touch, but most of the time, for instance, those panels are vertical, not oriented to the sunlight. It's not efficient. So that is one aspect. On the other aspect, the landscape here is mountain, 60% of mountain. So if you think at the density, the access, it's in a way a bit sustainable, but all the aspects are not addressed. I mean, part of them are addressed. Oh, you have a mic.
So maybe I think that this is kind of a cultural element of Korea, and there is a big difference between, for example, Europe and Korea. In Europe, we have created this kind of type of buildings in the suburb. And usually for poor people or for immigrant people. Yeah. So the image was associated with some problems. And there was very bad image. In fact, in Korea, if you see, they start with a Pampo apartment in the center of Seoul, and after all this on the riverside, on the both sides of the Iron River. So it became the opposite, the place where people dreamed to go there, because it was more modern than in the 70s, 80s. The country developed so quickly that this model become the kind of dream, and I think people are still in this habit to have this as in their mind. I don't think it's sustainable for another reason, and you see something that we can see in many other cities. You can see in Japan, you can see in China, but also sometimes in Brazil, is that you have a big lot of land which is only oriented for apartments. And the problem is how these buildings will evolve. What will happen in 30 years? At the beginning it's okay. We can see already in Seoul, some part of in Pampo area, some apartments have been demolished and rebuilt. But what will we do next time? How many floors you have to build to make it viable financially? I think that the problem is that we have destroyed the street concept. And with the street, you can see, for example, we have a very old house in Europe, in Paris, and it's become an apartment. Then it changed as a store. Then it changed as an office. And in fact, there is a kind of many renovation possible. So in fact, it's very flexible. And what gives this flexibility is the street, is the connection between to the street, and in order that to create an environment that can evolve with the needs of the people. So the main problem is a single use on a very large area.
자, 우리 이제 학생들 질문해 보세요.
So I think that I think the things for architects is often we say sometimes there is not good architects, there are only good clients. So when we have good clients, then we can really make things good because we have kind of collaboration with the client. But for the client, there is needs of understanding. If the client for example, when I proposed the double-skin facade for Dongbu, the question is, okay, but how do you put the sprinkler in between the two spaces? So it's kind of very technical solutions, and it was probably totally disconnected with the purpose to make this building as a green possible. So I feel that we got this oil crisis in Europe in the 70s. And we have been more, I would say, sensitive, and we don't have oil. So we have been very sensitive at the beginning with this problem of energy. And we tried to find quite quickly some solutions. Especially the German people were leading this approach, and they have some influence on other cities. All the northern cities also are very advanced. So it kind of influence maybe all the people, and people are educated, I would say, in this mind. So when we speak about sustainability, I think it's not necessary even to mention it. It's part of the game. While we are still here, need to sell. It's somehow the concept here. So this is maybe the gap. So there is some needs, but and sometimes there is some building that's, for example, in Pyeongchang, I think there is a platinum LEED building, but it was very expensive, and I think it's not very good because people think that okay, green means expensive. So this is also even making delay in the implementation of such approach in Korea. But what we saw with the project we have in Incheon is that if we have this approach at the urban scale, then not at the building scale, you can really, because in the building scale you have to, all the investment is just focusing on one building. But if you can share the investment with different buildings, then the cost is not that expensive. So we really need to implement this at least at the block, or if possible at the city level.
So Frederic, do you have something to say about this question?
About the design, I fully agree with Christian that it's a matter of customers. Culturally, at least at the scale of a city or industries, the company is dealing with, people are more focused on the capital expenditure, on the initial investment, rather than on the long-term saving they could benefit from investing a little bit more at the beginning. And this is also, for the moment, deep-rooted in the Korean culture, and it in business-wise. People, they are looking for short-term financial benefit. And as long as they don't switch to a more long-term vision, it will be difficult to encompass this sustainability approach and the idea that spending a little bit more would benefit over the long term. Cities is still the case. For instance, wastewater treatment, there's no reuse almost in Korea. Almost no reuse. Or waste. I'm sorry to say that Korea is the only country of OECD to dump waste in the sea. You may like Haeundae, But on both sides of Yaoundé, you have two large pipes sending sludge to your nice beach. So I think it's a matter of culture, of course, a matter of generation. But us doing business here, promoting sustainability, we have to face this. So we have to educate our customers and to make them understanding that perhaps spending a little bit more, changing the view will benefit on the long term. And this is the reason why sometimes we invest for them and we design for them. This is the type of business we do here.
Well, let me actually help you. Maybe it's not help. Difficult discussion. I think the students in this department, they are trying to incorporate cultural aspects in many ways into their the background, whether it's computer science or the even bio, chemical engineering, or the humanity or social science in many aspects. But today, well, you mentioned actually, Frederic, you mentioned the qualitative, the outcome, so quantitative. Well, but based on my understanding throughout your presentation, since the use of the underlying, given resource, whether it's a waste or whatever, but how cultural parameters are incorporated into your design of sustainable system. I think that's what, including myself, would like to hear. And, well, maybe some. Well, you actually showed many examples.
But,
for example, you've been already here almost 5 years. So, could you give us some example where you actually specifically Korean cultural stuff, not just pali-pali. Right.
No, but related to between architecture and energy and so on, the Hondol. Hondol is something very specific to Korea. So floor heating, if we say in English, and also low temperature floor heating is different from certain other countries. But most of the time in the Korean building, the technological solution behind is to produce steam and then to cool down to have hot water. Is it efficient? Why to produce steam, to cool down, and to produce low temperature water? Another approach would be to have a lower temperature from the beginning. So you see, we are not pushing to change the way you will heat your place. Culturally, you prefer Hondol, no problem. This is an aspect of the culture. But the way to do it could be different. So here you see we have a European background in terms of technology or habits. We encompass a local culture. This is not radiant heating, floor heating. This is an example. So one aspect. So and after the cultural aspect is based also on the social environment. The networks, the people, the way they commute, and so on. That is considered in the project development, as for instance the project we did. One also an aspect, the culture is addressed, for instance, through One Planet Living or this type of certification. Very often in Korea, buildings are certified for their technological aspect. LEED certification, gold, platinum, whatever. It's a technology, the performance of the building, but completely disconnected from the local environment. And one of the experience we had recently on a project is to switch from this technical evaluation, but to go to the social evaluation. And one referential, which is coming from UK, is named One Planet Living, where you have 10 principles, and that is a way to encompass the culture in the development of a sustainable project.
I think the culture is mainly in the way that people use the space. This is at the interior scale, at the architecture scale, at the urban scale. After the technical solutions, I'd say, Frederic, it's a bit disconnected, and we could have some solution. We could adapt, for example, I don't know, in other countries that can be adapted and used here in Korea. So there is the cultural, the space and culture we are together, and after around this you have different solutions, but they are not really linked to culture, except on some detail like the handle or something that we can use, can adapt. But mainly there is a set of tools, there is a set of solutions, and we can make different use of different energy for each project. And for example, even from different cities, or even on the same city, from different sites, we can use different type of technology, in fact. So I think there is two things. One is the technology, and the other thing is the space itself and how people live and interact with the space, which will be different. For example, we see, for example, sometimes you have some international company, architect company. Sometimes they have people coming from, I don't know, for example, Europe, you have people coming from Portugal or Spain, and they have totally different view for the lighting. For people from northern part, from Denmark, this is totally different way they perceive the lights in totally different ways. So I think this is more linked to the space and how people experience the space. But after, in terms of technology, it's open. It's an open solution.
One of the limitations, perhaps, it's I would say the benchmark culture of Korean industries, which limit the innovation. Sustainability, as Christian mentioned, and as we discussed, is local. It's based on the way people are living. It's based on the culture. One basic example, but technical, but basic, kimchi is specific to Korea. All those fermented side dishes, hanban is fermented, is specific to Korea. So the food waste is specific. And why, for the moment, in Korea, most of the food waste reprocessing has failed, is because companies, even the famous large chaebols, have just benchmarked and copied or purchased technology from Europe, trying to make them working here. But sorry, in France we don't have kimchi, in Germany neither, and it does not work, simply. And so this is the reason why I mentioned just before, it's not because we have one sustainable approach in an area that it will be the same elsewhere. We have to consider the local aspect, the cultural aspect, and this is very important.
So Mr. Barber, you have worked with the city of Seoul. You have some work experience with city of Seoul?
Currently we try to work with Incheon. Incheon city.
Okay, so let's take Incheon as an example.
Yeah.
The mayor changed.
Yeah.
The regime changed.
Yeah.
Took place.
Yes.
So does that make any difference in your project, or? So my question is about the continuity of a particular architect's project conditioned by the regime, so politics.
Yeah, I've mentioned this, yes, to the previous mayor of Seoul. I said that the message that, in fact, that we should find a way that the project are not only the project of the mayors, but are the project of the community, and where people are committed to make it happen, and despite the mayor, because if the one guy goes this way and the other way does not make it happen. Yes, so
So it's a Korean culture. Students.
Yes, I see it.
So you had the question, no?
Well, I have a similar question.
Okay.
Any other question?
Yes, there's a question there. Thank you.
Yeah, I would love to know your motivation for coming to Korea. Because if you want to study Asian architecture, then you could have gone to Japan or China. So what I want to ask you is that is it personal or is there any special reason for you why you wanted to decide to come to Korea?
You answer first.
So, Yenale. I met a very nice Korean woman in Paris, and I have this little baby, which I think is a very good reason to come in Korea.
For me, it was just by chance. I would say a long time ago also. It was similar to Korea. I mean, men had to serve in the army. Except depending on the education degree, they could also voluntarily serve abroad in French administration or French companies, and I worked for 1.5 years in the French Trade Commission here. And having worked here on market analysis and so on, I've been recruited by companies here, and this is the way it went.
Junior, do you have a question?
Why did you come?
He's already cultivated.
Yes. Go ahead, could
try. Okay, 이제 시작을 꼭
So anyway, thank you very much for having given us this opportunity. Thank you.